On May 31st, 2006, at 5:47 in the morning, 53 armed police officers broke down the door of a data center in Stockholm, Sweden. They were there for one target, and that target was a website called the Pirate Bay, a site Hollywood claimed had cost them $30 billion in stolen movies and music and was being used by 25 million people every single day to download anything they wanted for free. The raid was massive and coordinated. Officers moved through the building, unplugging servers and pulling cables and loading hard drives into evidence bags. By noon, every piece of equipment had been seized and the website's founders were in police custody. Swedish prosecutors held victory press conferences and Hollywood executives celebrated because the world's most notorious piracy website was finally dead. But 72 hours later, something impossible happened. The Pirate Bay came back online. The homepage now showed a pirate ship firing cannonballs at a sign that said Hollywood, and the site acted as if nothing had ever happened. Traffic didn't just recover, it doubled because every news outlet in the world had just given them free advertising. And this is what terrified every government and corporation that was watching. They had seized every server and arrested the founders, and the website still came back. If you can't destroy this, then maybe you can't control the internet at all. How did 3 Swedish hackers build something impossible to kill? The bedroom server. Stockholm, 2001. Gottfried Svartholm was 19 years old and living in his parents' house, and his bedroom floor was covered in cables that snaked from a jury-rigged server sitting under his bed. He had shaggy hair and a skeptical smile, and eyes that lit up when he talked about cryptography, and his online handle was Anakata, a name that would eventually become both legend and curse. In 2003, Gottfried and 2 allies, Fredrik Ney and Peter Sunder, wired together a BitTorrent tracker as a side project for Pirate Byron, an anti-copyright collective operating from a Stockholm warehouse. Their mission was simple, and they wanted to make file sharing completely frictionless, with no gatekeepers and no apologies and no tracking logs. Gottfried's home server became the beating heart of this experiment. The tracker caught fire faster than any of them predicted. By late 2004, their hobby project had a name, the Pirate Bay, and it had 40,000 users swapping everything from open-source Linux distributions to Hollywood's latest releases. Every torrent downloaded passed through Gottfried's machine, and the bandwidth bills started making his parents extremely nervous. Fredrik suggested they needed commercial hosting, and they needed it fast. So they launched PRQ, a hosting company with one very simple rule, and that rule was, we host anything and we keep 0 logs. While their competitors folded under legal pressure, PRQ wore takedown notices like merit badges. The New York Times would later describe them as highly secure, no questions asked operators, with considerable expertise in withstanding legal attacks. The translation was basically, bring your lawsuits if you can, because we dare you. The outlaw brand. The dares piled up quickly. In February 2004, DreamWorks attorneys sent a cease and desist letter demanding removal of Shrek 2 torrents. Gottfried's response became internet folklore, and he wrote back saying, Sweden is not a state in the United States of America, and for your information, no Swedish law is being violated, and it is the opinion of us and our lawyers that you are morons. He suggested the Hollywood lawyers perform an anatomically creative act with retractable batons, and then signed off saying, go screw yourself, polite as usual, Anakata. Instead of cowering, the Pirate Bay posted the entire exchange on their homepage. The letter went viral, and traffic to the site tripled overnight. Every legal threat became free advertising for their outlaw brand, and the more Hollywood pushed, the bigger they grew. By mid-2005, the Pirate Bay was managing traffic that would make most tech startups envious. The site ran on code Gottfried wrote mostly alone, including a custom tracker called Hypercube that coordinated file sharing across millions of machines simultaneously. At peak, 25 million peers worldwide connected through the Pirate Bay's infrastructure, and that was enough traffic to rank among the internet's top 100 sites. The interface stayed deliberately bare, and all you saw was a search bar and a pirate ship logo and an ocean of content. But under that simplicity, Gottfried had architected something approaching digital immortality. Every new user made the network harder to destroy, and every shared file created redundancy, and it wasn't a website anymore. It was a living organism growing faster than anyone could regulate it. The Motion Picture Association of America watched this growth with mounting fury. Their lawsuits against individual downloaders weren't working, and the real target was the infrastructure making it all possible. And that infrastructure had a home address in Sweden. By early 2006, MPAA lobbyists were working Swedish diplomatic channels and pushing officials to act. Emails flew between Hollywood and Stockholm, and pressure built. Swedish authorities, normally hands-off about internet regulation, started feeling heat from across the Atlantic. The government wanted this problem gone. The raid, May 2006. Gottfried's phone vibrated with a warning from a contact inside Sweden's telecom industry, and the message was simple. Police are mobilizing. He called Fredrik immediately, and they had wargamed this scenario for months. Their disaster recovery plan was simple, and database backups sat encrypted on servers in the Netherlands, ready to deploy. If the main infrastructure fell, they would rebuild the Pirate Bay before Swedish TV finished the evening news. Gottfried had spent 2 years making sure the site's entire existence could fit on a thumb drive and resurrect anywhere with electricity and bandwidth. Now, at dawn, that preparation would be tested by 53 armed officers. The raid came in waves. The first door went down in Bromma, a Stockholm suburb where a bandwidth provider housed the Pirate Bay's primary servers. Officers moved in synchronized teams, and 10 locations were hit simultaneously. In the server room, metal racks got unplugged mid-operation, and hard drives slid into evidence bags. Technicians in the building stood frozen with hands raised as police hauled out equipment on wheeled dollies. Gottfried and Fredrik were handcuffed and driven to separate interrogation rooms. By 11 a.m., Swedish television was running breaking news with the headline, "Notorious Piracy Website Shut Down." The police spokesperson told cameras they had dismantled a major criminal operation. On forums worldwide, panic spread, and in Stockholm, hundreds rallied in Mynttorget Square, waving pirate flags and chanting "Free the Bay." It looked like Hollywood had scored a clean knockout. The Pirate Bay's URL returned only error messages, and MPAA representatives issued statements congratulating Swedish authorities on their decisive action against digital theft. Rights holders calculated lost revenue they believed would now return. But nobody was counting on what happened next. The resurrection, June 2nd, 2006, just after midnight. Whispers circulated on forums and IRC channels. The site is back. Users refreshed their browsers and the homepage loaded. The pirate ship logo now had a new detail, and it was firing cannonballs at a hillside sign labeled Hollywood. Across the top, a message read, "The galaxy's most resilient BitTorrent site." In the raid's confusion, Gottfried's team had executed their contingency plan flawlessly. They migrated the complete database to servers in Amsterdam and rerouted DNS and brought everything online in 72 hours. The police had seized the hardware, but they couldn't touch the community or the code that actually mattered. Peter Sunder, the site's public face, held a press conference from his Stockholm apartment, and reporters crowded around his laptop. The downtime wasn't fear, he explained while grinning. We were scaling up infrastructure to handle all the new traffic you journalists just sent us. He wasn't exaggerating, and the raid had become the greatest advertising campaign in Pirate Bay history. Traffic exploded, and it doubled, then tripled pre-raid numbers. The site crashed repeatedly from surge load, not police action. Gottfried and Fredrik worked 20-hour shifts, stabilizing servers. Hollywood tried to kill them and accidentally made them invincible. Behind the scenes, they were hardening the operation for the next assault. Multiple mirror sites went live across Europe and Asia, and the codebase got modularized and designed to deploy on any server in any country within hours. They distributed backup copies to trusted admins in 6 nations. When a Swedish journalist asked how they would survive the next raid, Fredrik didn't hesitate. "We have plans in other countries and we're not stupid." The swagger was earned. They were treating law enforcement as just another network problem to root around. Swedish prosecutors, embarrassed, doubled down, and they combed through seized evidence, building a criminal case. Meanwhile, the Pirate Bay posted the actual police warrant on their homepage with sarcastic margin notes that said "LOL" and "good luck with that" and "try harder." The trolling was relentless. Users sent donations and traffic climbed to 30 million visits daily. What started under Gottfried's bed now ran on infrastructure spanning 3 continents. The raid meant to destroy them had transformed the Pirate Bay into a global phenomenon. The trial. February 16, 2009. Stockholm District Court. 4 men sat at the defense table, and they were Gottfried looking pale and smirking, Fredrik with arms crossed, Peter tweeting in real time, and Carl Lundström, the older businessman who had bankrolled early infrastructure. The media dubbed it the spectacle, and protesters in pirate hats rallied outside while inside every seat filled with journalists from 30 countries. The prosecution framed them as criminal masterminds who facilitated millions of copyright violations and earned millions in ad revenue. The defense argued the Pirate Bay was perfectly legal under Swedish law because it was an index, not a host, and they never stored copyrighted files, only torrent links. The trial swung between technical minutiae and philosophical warfare. A prosecutor attempted to explain BitTorrent technology and mangled the details so badly that Gottfried interrupted from the defense table to correct him, and the gallery erupted in laughter. Entertainment industry lawyers presented charts claiming billions in damages, while user letters flooded the court, describing how the Pirate Bay gave them access to culture they couldn't otherwise afford. Peter blogged the entire proceeding and turned the trial into a daily serial for his 100,000 followers. April 17, 2009, Judgment Day. The courtroom was standing room only, and the judge read the verdict. Guilty on all counts of assisting copyright infringement. Each defendant received 1 year in prison, and collectively they owed 30 million Swedish krona, roughly $3.6 million. Within minutes, the Pirate Bay's homepage updated its logo to a tape-mouthed Mickey Mouse, a silent protest against what they called Disney-backed censorship. Peter told reporters the sentence was bicycle locking, meaningless punishment for a victimless crime. Appeals began immediately. In November 2010, the appeals court delivered a mixed ruling and prison terms got slightly reduced for some defendants, but damages skyrocketed to 46 million krona, over $7 million. Peter wrote on his blog, "You can't squeeze blood from a stone," and pledged that not a single krona would be voluntarily paid. Sweden's Supreme Court refused to hear further appeals in 2011, and the sentences were now final and enforceable. When authorities arrived to collect the defendants, one was missing. Gottfried had vanished. The ghost. Officially, Gottfried missed his appeal hearing due to illness. Unofficially, Swedish media reported he had fled to Cambodia. Fredrik relocated to Laos with his wife, and Peter eventually turned himself in after a farewell speaking tour at hacker conferences. But Gottfried, the architect and the coder and the engineer who built the machine, he was gone completely dark. Interpol red notices went out, and Swedish diplomats contacted Southeast Asian governments. Months passed, and occasional sightings surfaced. A Swedish expat claimed they saw Gottfried at a Phnom Penh internet cafe, hunched over a ThinkPad. WikiLeaks later acknowledged that Gottfried helped build infrastructure for their 2010 cable leaks. He was living exactly like the ideology he coded, and he was stateless and mobile and impossible to pin down. The Pirate Bay, meanwhile, refused to die with its founders. In 2012, the site made a radical evolution, and it abandoned torrent files, entirely switching to magnet links. A torrent file is a physical target, something police can seize or block. A magnet link is just a text string, a hash, and you can't confiscate an equation. The site's blog announced the change and said it made the Pirate Bay leaner and nearly impossible to target. They released a compressed backup of the entire site database, just a few gigabytes, and any user could download it and spin up a clone in minutes. The site had become a distributed organism designed to survive even if every original server burned. By late 2011, traffic to the Pirate Bay remained steady at record highs. The convictions didn't slow it, and the raids didn't stop it. Users treated the site as if the legal drama was happening in a parallel universe. Gottfried's creation had outgrown him, and it didn't need its founders to survive anymore. The fall, August 30th, 2012, Phnom Penh, Cambodia. A joint task force of Swedish officials and Cambodian police moved on a waterfront apartment in the capital. The door splintered, and inside they found a bearded 27-year-old hunched over a laptop, surrounded by empty energy drink cans and takeout containers. Gottfried was arrested without resistance, and within 72 hours he was on a flight back to Stockholm, deported at Sweden's urgent request. But Swedish prosecutors had bigger plans. New charges hit before he even finished processing into prison, and they were for unauthorized access to Swedish government databases and attempted bank fraud. Investigators alleged that between 2010 and 2012, while Gottfried was supposedly a fugitive, laying low, someone using his computers breached servers at Logica, an IT contractor managing Sweden's tax authority systems. The intrusion accessed national tax IDs for thousands of Swedes and attempted to issue fraudulent driver's licenses. Even more audacious evidence suggested an attempt to penetrate Nordea bank systems and initiate unauthorized transfers. The narrative shifted, and Gottfried wasn't just a copyright rebel anymore. He was being framed as a black hat hacker threatening state infrastructure. Gottfried denied everything. His defense was technical and specific, and he said his laptop was compromised by unknown parties who used it as a proxy. Security researchers confirmed his system was infected, but prosecutors argued he was sophisticated enough to have staged that infection himself. The 2013 trial delivered a split verdict, and he was found guilty of hacking into Logica systems, but the Nordea bank charges got dismissed for insufficient evidence. The sentence was 2 years in prison later, reduced to 1 year on appeal. As he began serving time in a Swedish prison, another country was preparing their own case. Denmark had been investigating a devastating hack of their own, and in 2012, someone breached CSC, a major IT contractor managing Danish police databases and social security systems. The intrusion stole personal identification numbers for millions of Danish citizens, and it was one of the worst cybersecurity breaches in Scandinavian history. Danish investigators traced chat logs and digital fingerprints to a familiar alias, and that alias was Anna Carter. In late 2013, as Gottfried finished his Swedish sentence, Denmark requested extradition, and he was immediately transferred to Copenhagen and placed in solitary confinement. The Danish trial in October 2014 was intense and unforgiving. Prosecutors presented evidence of a 6-month intrusion into CSC's mainframes, but Gottfried's defense claimed someone else had used his alias and equipment to commit the crimes. The jury didn't buy it, and the forensic evidence was overwhelming. On October 27, 2014, the guilty verdict arrived, and the sentence was crushing. 3.5 years in prison, the harshest hacking sentence in Danish history at that point. September 2015, Gottfried walked out of a Danish prison thin and hardened. Denmark attempted to deport him immediately, but Swedish police rearrested him on the prison steps for a final 1-month sentence. By December 2015, all debts were paid, and he was finally free. His mother met him at the gates, telling reporters he just wanted to sit by a keyboard again after 3 years away from one. Gottfried had lived the complete hacker narrative, and it went from creation to glory to exile to conviction to imprisonment to release. And the Pirate Bay, still online and still serving torrents from servers hosted in locations authorities couldn't easily reach, was being maintained by anonymous admins and true believers. The site had outlived multiple raids and dozens of domain seizures and the imprisonment of all 3 founders. It's not as dominant as it once was because streaming services and fragmented file sharing have changed the landscape. But type the URL and you'll find it, or one of countless proxies still sailing. The Pirate Bay proved a brutal lesson, and that lesson is you can't kill what has no center. 3 Swedish hackers understood something that billion-dollar corporations didn't, and they understood that the internet wasn't a thing you could control from the top down. It was a network, and every user made it stronger, and every shared file made it more resilient. They seized every server and arrested the founders, and it still came back because the idea had spread too far to stop. Gottfried spent years in prison, but his creation lives on. And it's a reminder that once information wants to be free, you can't put it back in the box. If you found this story interesting, hit the like button and share it with someone who wants to understand how 3-bedroom hackers changed the internet forever.